All right. Well, great. Thank you so much. We're here for this updated time with you all from the economic development and local government sector, one of several sectors that's providing input and feedback into this countywide process that is the Community Economic Resilience Fund, which is this, what we were calling once in a generation opportunity for all regions up and down California to think about not just planning, but implementation on economic development priorities for their respective geographies. In your case, one of three regions in California with a single county designation. So congratulations maybe to you all for having that. Maybe will help in moving more nimbly as you operate within one county as opposed to other regions that are having to do this across 12 counties as some examples. But a quick run through what we're doing today, just a quick welcome. We encourage you to drop your name and your information, your affiliation, contact info as you're comfortable doing that in the chat so we all know who's here. We'll provide a quick overview of the deliverables for this countywide Community Economic Resilience Fund opportunity. And then we're going to do most of the program will be Dr. Walrod and colleagues walking us through the a high-level overview of some really diligent research that they've done over the last few months related to this effort to really help level set and benchmark where the county is with regards to several variables. And we'll talk about why that's important with this whole countywide process and how that will inform some of the upcoming decision-making strategy and implementation that's to come in months ahead and leading into June of 2024, which is what this process will take us into. And then Dr. Walrod and colleagues will open it up to discussion and some feedback and questions from all of you on the data that will be presented. But let's jump in quickly into the deliverables with regards to where we're at with this process here in Orange County. And I guess I should tell you who I am. By the way, I'm Ish Herrera. I'm part of the California Forward team that's here with my colleagues David Loaiza and Trista Carter. We're here providing support to the team from OCBC and Charitable Ventures, the fiscal agent for this countywide effort, to make sure that we're making progress on deliverables and that this little line that you see in front of you is making its way all the way to the right, June 2024. And so just as a snapshot, this is where we're at currently with today's meeting. This is, I believe, the second time you all are huddling as a sector to really wrap your head around what the different pieces of this work are. We're now at this phase where we are acquiring feedback on the data that's been done by our talented research team. It also is coinciding with some data we're collecting on the ground with folks in the communities that are doing outreach and engagement with residents and organizations, small business owners, and what have you, a diverse set of stakeholders to complement this quantitative data that's being gathered here and presented to you today. And all this will help inform the next two phases of this countywide effort, which will take us into June of next year, which is the strategies phase and the project and implementation phases of this important work. And so we're really thankful that you all are taking the time here to learn about the data and that's telling the story of where Orange County is and potentially could be in the coming future, in near future, and how this will inform decision making that the governance body of this effort, the High Road Transition Collaborative, which some of you are members of, will be using this to make decisions and prioritize projects in your county. So that's where we're at today. If we can move to the next slide, we'll just do a quick check in on again regarding where we're at with this effort and the data and the outreach, but also let you know we have office hours available too. That office hours are being made available to all of you, like the other members of the other respective sector groups, whether it be CBO, environmental justice. Those of you in economic development and local government also have the opportunity to check in with us, California Forward, and the representatives of the OCBC team to ask questions about this whole initiative and the timeline. But specifically, if there's time, if you don't have the opportunity to ask questions related to the data and the research that's being presented today, you can come visit our office hours and make it a point to get your input heard so that it's taken into account as we get into these other phases of the initiative in months to come. So invitation to all of you. We welcome you to participate in those office hours. Next slide. And that might be it. Okay. Well, even faster than I anticipated. Let's turn it over to you, Dr. Walrod, and jump right into it, because I know we have a lot to cover and we want to make sure that there's enough time for folks to ask questions and provide some reactions to the data that's going to be presented here. So Dr. Walrod, we'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ish, and thanks, Jesse. Let me share screen. There we go. Hello, everybody. Good to be here. Just finished up my first presentation, so hopefully I'm a little bit practiced at this point. But yeah, we wanted to just give you a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation. I think you all have gotten access to the document, and I'll point out there's about 3 parts that were missing in the document that was linked that you already got. Talk about those as we go through. Talk mainly about the process that we've gone through, and then a little bit about the table of contents, about just how the report, the part 1 report is structured. And then the bulk of what we're going to talk about is the SWOT analysis. And the way I see it is the SWOT kind of links the research work that our team of researchers has done with the next phase, which is the developing strategies phase. So I think it's kind of a nice flow, and that's why I thought I'd focus on the SWOT analysis. Of course, we're happy to get feedback on anything in the document that we need to enhance, improve, add. We have gotten one substantive bit of feedback to add more information about this water situation in Orange County. So we're in the process of adding that to the document right now. So we had a lot of work to do in a very short amount of time. This was supposed to kick off in October of 22, and in reality, it didn't really kick off until March of 23. And basically, the state kept the same timeline as if it had launched in October of 22. So, as I said, we have had a research team that's done a lot of work in a very short amount of time. We followed the state guidelines, pretty closely. I actually think, and Ish can weigh in on this as well, we're in probably as good, if not better shape than most of the other regions around the state, because I said there are very tight timelines to get this done. So we decided to develop a fairly streamlined process, which was we had the researchers develop PowerPoint presentations initially. And those PowerPoint presentations basically had all the data and mapping that section of the report was going to be based on. So those were all presented to the HRTC, the High Road Transition Collaborative, which is kind of like the executive committee of SURF for Orange County. And so the researchers were given direction as to, could we add some more here? Could we drill down in this particular section? So we collected a lot of feedback, additional areas to do work in. We always documented all the questions and feedback that we got during those presentations. Followed up both, directly with the people asking those questions, but then also in the research narrative. We developed that narrative that goes with that data, both the initial data and the sort of feedback from the HRTC. We did stand up GIS data and mapping portal that I think has been a nice way for everybody to go and see the presentations, see the mapping, see reports that members of the HRTC had sent us. So that's sort of been the approach that we've taken in the process. And I think it's delivered a pretty good result, because a lot of times you get a report and the decision-making body hasn't had a chance to kind of give feedback before you kind of do at least the initial first draft of the report. This way, the HRTC was able to see everything that was going to go into the whole report and give us direction as we did it on the fly, as I said, under pretty tight timelines. So let me walk through the structure of the report. As I said, we stayed pretty close to the state guidelines that were in the SURF SFP and other subsequent direction we've gotten from the state. But we did add several components we thought were really important that especially were meeting the spirit of what SURF is all about. And so we start out our analysis with some foundational objectives of SURF and some mapping and analysis of those foundational objectives. The real spotlight of SURF is on Orange County's disinvested communities. So we spent a fair bit of time understanding those communities, where they've been, where they currently are, and where they may be going. And especially we used some lenses that are inherent in the SURF process to do that analysis. One is equity and inclusiveness. Second is sustainability and environmental justice. And third is, COVID recovery and economic competitiveness. As I said, we actually got a lot of feedback, which was great. So we did some additional mapping requests. People wanted us to drill down at very, finite geographic scale, but then also with different, demographic considerations, et cetera. So those were all taken into consideration, and you'll see a part in the report that really hits upon these foundational objectives and really grounds us and centers us in what really the focus of SURF is. We another thing, not a part of the state guidelines, but very early on we had some members of the HRTC very interested in an interesting research process called participatory action research. And so one of the HRTC member organizations, Cooperación in Santa Ana, put together a research strategy and then actually conducted research. That's not in the current document that you may have seen so far, but we're hoping to get that in the next week or two. They had a community event where they had, I think it was 112 attendees from disinvested communities, and they had a nice sort of research plan and a kind of a structure to that. So I'm looking forward to seeing those results soon. And I think that'll be a great addition to the report before we submit it to the state. We also, another piece that's currently is in production is stakeholder mapping. So Rebecca Alvarez from NP Strategies reached out probably to many of the organizations that are on this call. And we developed a great database that's going to be very valuable as we go forward in SURF. And just to give you a flavor of it, reaching out to a lot of community organizations and other stakeholders that are part of the SURF process. We asked them, what are the communities that you serve? So some of them are sort of countywide, but some serve very specific communities with Orange County. What are the subject matter? What are the things that what are the service delivery topic areas that you do? How can you play a part in SURF going forward? So that is going to be, as I said, a very valuable part as we get to the strategy and the project phase of SURF, to be able to say, oh, we want a project that looks at education and workforce training in, say, Central Orange County or North Orange County. Who are really the players there that are doing good work in that area? So that's going to be very valuable now, not just now for the research component, but really a fundamental tool that we will be using going forward. Then these are part of the state guidelines. So we did a regional summary. And in that, we included a section on the overall Orange County economy and economic development projects that are going on here. We did a section on climate and environmental impact, and particularly focused on the nexus between transportation and job access. And there's some very interesting mapping and data analysis components of that. A big part of SURF is access to quality jobs, high quality jobs, good paying jobs, whatever, however you want to talk about it. But that was a fundamental component we wanted to see. Say if you are in a disinvested community, how many jobs can you access with our transportation network? So some very interesting analysis there. Climate is a big part of SURF. So we looked at climate vulnerabilities within Orange County. Lots more on that to come during the SWOT analysis that you'll see later. And then for each of the sections, we had the researchers give their key takeaways. We also did the public health analysis, a part of the state guidelines, where we looked at health disparities in Orange County, and then gaps in health outcomes and environmental and sustainability challenges and healthcare access. So a fairly robust section on public health, and a big part, I think, of understanding both opportunities and challenges within disinvested communities starts with a firm public health analysis. Another required component of SURF is the labor market analysis. So we looked at it from a number of different perspectives, both from industry, employment, and wages to occupations. And those are definitely two different ways of looking at labor market analysis that yield, sometimes complementary and sometimes a little bit divergent kind of findings that you might draw from that data. Then we looked at current occupational demand, and primarily through the use of job postings. And it still is the case that we do have a lot more job postings than we have skilled, labor in order to access those jobs that are in demand. So that is a core part of understanding where investments can be made, so that we have more people able to access the jobs that employers are posting on. And then we do an economic and employment forecast for Orange County in that section. Not a part of the state guidelines, but something that we think is very important is the impact of AI and automation. And obviously, starting in about November of 22, with ChatGPT, we at OCBC and some of my colleagues had been, interested in this topic for probably about the last 5 years or so. There was some interesting work done at Oxford University in the UK that was originally published in The Economist that started us on this path. We have a lot of really good researchers and analysts who have been thinking about what does this mean for the labor force going forward? What does it mean for the labor market? It's actually a professor from UC Irvine, Neil Sahota, who is also a consultant to the United Nations, who performed this work for us. And I think we are very happy with what he said about what we can do in Orange County. And you'll see some of that later on in the SWOT analysis. UCI, the UCI Labor Center did not exist actually when we were proposing on SURF, but a lot of people pointed us to this new department or this new center at UC Irvine. I think Berkeley, UCLA, and I can't remember the third UC campus has had labor centers for a long time, decades actually. And UCI's, I think, started basically in the early 2023. Virginia Parks is the director of the center currently. That's a person I've worked with in the School of Social Ecology previously. And so we asked Virginia to look at this, look at the data from a labor perspective. In terms of data availability, some of that data is not easily available. So she and her colleague did a tremendous job under very tight timeline. And I think it's actually the first work product and the first project that is going to, that the UCI Labor Center has worked on and released. So I think we're pretty proud of that. And Virginia, as I said, and our team did a fantastic job. We did, part of the state guidelines is the industry cluster analysis. So we looked very closely at that, and we did the analysis by city. One of the things that the state, during the SURF process, started to emphasize industry councils. And one of the things I would love to get feedback either today on, or going forward, feel free to email me, is they really want us to look at the 3 key industries for Orange County's future. What are the industries that are going to be most important in Orange County? And we started to do some work on that, but we would love to get everybody's view on what are the key industries that are most important to Orange County's future going forward. Then we part of the state guidelines was to do a SWOT analysis. Oh, let me just go back for a second. Location quotient analysis, if you're not familiar with it, is how you figure out how concentrated a particular industry is in your particular location, in this case, Orange County, compared either to the state or nation. Usually the nation, we compare it to the nation. So we traditionally think of industry sector like medical device being very concentrated in Orange County. It's one of the, say, 2 or 3 centers of medical device in the country. So those are the kind of industries that location quotient analysis uncovers. And actually what's interesting is a lot of people, I think, forget about how important manufacturing is to Orange County. But when you look at the location quotient analysis, you really see Orange County has many sectors in manufacturing that scored very highly on location quotient analysis. And because of the multiplier effects of manufacturing, and also because of the onshoring or reindustrialization trends that are happening right now in the United States, I think Orange County needs to that needs to be top of mind in SURF, that these are sectors that provide really good paying jobs and have really positive beneficial ripple effects throughout the rest of the economy. So the final component that's in the state guidelines is the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, oh, we messed up there. I just said we have to change that slide to opportunities and threats. So the way we conducted the SWOT analysis is, and one of the things that the state pointed us towards from the start was the existing CEDS that's in place in Orange County, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. That's something that you submit to the EDA. There are 5-year economic development plans. And so that formed the one that's currently in effect, which is about to expire in Orange County. The current one runs from 2019 to 2023. That sort of formed the initial foundation of what we looked at in terms of the SWOT. But then we had both the research team put together their key findings, and we incorporated those into the SWOT analysis. And then we also had the HRTC, and the HRTC mentioned several that we ended up adding to the SWOT analysis that I'll present here in a little bit. Finally, there's 3 appendices currently. We have, if you want just like a Cliff's Note version of what the researchers said, look at the first appendix. Each of them gave us their 3 key findings or 3 key points. We have a little bit of an Orange County history timeline. And then we had SCAG. We had a good partnership with SCAG and the Orange County Center of Excellence, which is at Rancho San Diego Community College. And so they gave us an occupational assessment, especially those jobs that they think are going to be resilient after recovery from COVID, which is a big part of what SURF's about. So once again, the 3 parts that aren't in what you probably saw at the link that will be put in over the next week or two are the participatory action research, the stakeholder mapping section, and then we did receive a draft of the content from the UCI Labor Center, and we're reviewing that right now. It's really great work, and we'll also incorporate that. So I am going to stop there and get any feedback before we launch into the comments, before we launch into the SWOT analysis. So let's open up the floor here. Give it a minute here, if anybody wants to weigh in. Okay, if not, feel free at any point. Let's make this interactive as much as possible. So under the SWOT analysis, and like I said, this to me is the bridge in between the research effort, the sections put together by the research team, and the next phase of SURF, which is developing strategies. So Orange County has a lot of strengths. We have a very highly educated workforce. For sure, in Southern California, we have the most highly educated workforce located here. That's always been a tremendous benefit to Orange County. And, you know, in general, our education and workforce, stakeholders are doing a fantastic job of really creating a world-class, workforce for the county, which probably is, in terms of economic development, is the most important thing now. Places that have very highly educated, skilled workforces are the ones that continually have the lowest unemployment rates. We do benefit from our location in many ways. We are a net importer of workers from all our surrounding counties. So from LA County, both Inland Empire counties, Riverside and San Bernardino, and then San Diego. We get about 200,000 more workers a day commuting into Orange County than Orange County workers commuting out. We do have our location on the Pacific Rim is very important for international trade purposes, and the economy is, a global economy at this point. Just to go back to why Orange County has become sort of this economic engine is we're right at the center of the Southern California region. So if you're like a national or international company and you want to have a Southern California location, it makes sense to be in Orange County because you can service LA, San Diego, Riverside, San Bernardino easily from this location. Whereas like if you were in LA, it's much more difficult to serve San Diego and vice versa. Just even if you have a meeting, going from LA to San Diego is basically taking up your whole day and vice versa. So Orange County has really benefited in being in the central location. Going along with that is our transportation infrastructure. We have, OCTA has done a fantastic job. We have one of the highest performing transportation systems in California, if not the highest. But we also have access to the ports of LA and Long Beach. John Wayne's a great asset too, but we have proximity obviously to Ontario and to LAX. And transportation in general is a huge driver of economic competitiveness, and especially the efficiency of the network. And that's in several different ways. One of those is just getting people commuting back and forth to work is important. So if you're sitting in traffic for, long periods of time, that cuts productivity. Businesses being able to move goods around the region, both to other businesses, but then to logistics hubs is important. So the transportation system's hugely important for regions. We do have world-class educational research institutions here in Orange County, led by 3 big universities of Chapman, UCI, and Cal State Fullerton. But we have other colleges and universities as well. And we really, that's another thing that increasingly is so important for economic competitiveness is having educational institutions that sort of anchor with innovation, with new workforce talent, etc. Tourism is a big, we saw how important tourism was during COVID when we didn't have, many of our venues were not open. We get a lot of dollars coming into the county because of tourism. It creates a lot of jobs here, and it's not just, stuff around the Disney Resort District, but it's also, all of our assets that are on the coast. And so Orange County is, one of the premier tourist destinations, I think. And as I said, it just brings people and dollars into the county that are, an important part of our economic story. We consistently do have the lowest unemployment rate in the region, and that's probably because of the combination of our central location, but then also a combination of, having a highly skilled workforce. So, as I said, we have a lot of workers living outside of Orange County and commuting in, but it's really important when, an economic shock occurs like COVID, that we're able to knock back down that unemployment rate quite quickly. We do have good internet connectivity here, and I'll probably go through these a little bit more quickly so we have time for discussion. We have tremendous array of assets in terms of industry clusters. When Milken Institute up in Santa Monica does their annual look at concentrations of particular industry clusters, Orange County is always 1, 2, or 3. I think it's 2 in the latest one. We're always neck and neck with San Diego and Boston. And that's really a tremendous benefit for Orange County, because some places like LA, they have one dominant industry, entertainment, Hollywood. And if something happens to that particular industry, it really hits that region hard. Or if, like, the tech industry during the .com bubble up in Silicon Valley, we used to have defense and aerospace used to be our major concentration, and we went from 100,000 down to less than 20,000 within about 10 years. But a lot of those firms commercialized, and the beauty of having a very diverse industry cluster base is if one particular sector gets hit, the other ones kind of fill the gap. So that also plays into, we have a pretty diverse, well-rounded economy. A big part of SURF is economic resilience, and during most of the recessions that we've had, we have recovered quicker than any other county surrounding Orange County. So I will stop there before we get into weaknesses, and would love any feedback or comments on any strengths that we might have missed.
Wallace,
Yes,
this is Linda.
Linda.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, terrific. Listen, on the strength on the increasingly diverse population, you called out Asian, Latino, but there's also a growing concentration of Middle Eastern.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering, I mean, I should say broad spectrum. I think that's a strength that we ought to address. And I also, in one of these sections, either the world-class education or the diverse population, that UCI has continued to attract a large international student population, and that many of those students do stay in the area. So that was one thing.
Okay.
The other thing was to recognize where we talk about the concentrated, strong and concentrated industry clusters, the strength of the global, not thinking in terms of, Fortune 500 headquarters, but just companies in our Orange County area that are global.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, a real strength as well.
Excellent.
under central geographic location, you ended with a sentence that says provides a number of dramatic advantages. That's one of our greatest strengths, in my opinion, is because we're so beautifully positioned to draw and attract. And I'd like just suggest be more specific, that there are assets, resources, and of course, talent that we can attract, those to the area, just to somehow be a little more specific in that regard. Because I think the benefits are greater than to the north or south of us. And the last thing would be under the education research is to add IVC.
Okay.
Because they're doing a lot of very direct workforce development. Those are the things that first popped into my head.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it. Other things we can incorporate before we move on to weaknesses?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Dr. Wallace, this is Catherine Muniz with the Orange County
Hi.
Conservation Corps. How are you? Nice to see you.
You
I'm
too.
looking at Appendix A under the research presentations, the 3 key points. And so the first ones there under Dr. Richard Matthew are all environmentally driven.
Mhm.
So on this list, as you take the environmental driven and some of the other 3 key points that others have taken, you're looking at that all as a kind of a holistic 3-point of information or analysis that basically sum the whole analysis up, correct?
Yes, for their particular presentations that they
Yes.
made.
Yes.
So Richard is the one researcher, although we wove some of his material in other sections. Richard gave a presentation to the HRTC, but he did not provide a narrative write-up. So that is the one difference.
I see. Okay. So yeah, these are the takeaways in each of these areas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Okay, maybe we'll move on to weaknesses, and I think I have to move a little bit more quickly so we have time for feedback. So even though we have this existing SEDS, there I think is a perception that there's a lack of unified regional vision. Although on the last presentation that we gave, actually there wasn't pushback on this, but people said, especially compared to LA was the person's example, that we have much greater unified regional vision than LA does. So, we can always do better, but I think one of the benefits of the SURF process is hopefully we are going to have a more common understanding and more unified regional vision going forward. And that's one of the, tremendous benefits of, having the SURF process happen in Orange County. We do have a labor force gap. There are a lot of job postings that are, job openings that employers would love to fill, but we don't always have the skilled workforce necessary to address those. Sorry about that. But that's something that I think a lot of work is being done both by educational institutions, workforce agencies, et cetera. Here is one of our glaring weaknesses is housing. It's really an Achilles heel for Orange County. And it is a real weakness that impacts a lot of other things. And if we don't address it, it is going to continue to have some negative ramifications for the county. And it's woven throughout so many other parts of this that I'll probably be a little bit brief on this, but we just haven't built enough new housing units in Orange County, and that's been decades in the making. So we need to do a much better job of just building more units, and especially those units that go along with the kind of jobs that we're creating in Orange County. It has caused this high cost of living in Orange County, and The three things that are so interrelated are housing costs, which make up 95% of the cost of living differential between Orange County and other places. Other things don't cost that much more here in Orange County. It's truly housing. And then that's caused, and you'll see later, that's caused us to have declining population for the last 3 or 4 years in Orange County, which if you would have told me 15 or 20 years ago that Orange County would have declining population, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But unfortunately, we have this dynamic with not building enough workforce housing that has occurred. It is getting tougher. There is less land available for new construction than there once was. We do have a lot of open space that's permanently dedicated that can't be built on. But we're starting to find some solutions. We did a report about 5 years ago that looked at what are the ramifications of declining brick and mortar retail sales versus e-commerce. And one of the things we pointed to was there are shopping malls out there that at least a portion of the shopping mall can be converted to housing. That's already occurring in several shopping malls in Orange County. So there are tools, but we need to do a better job of being more flexible in make sure that we get more housing constructed. We always will be vulnerable to natural disasters here. Fires, earthquakes, drought, even though we've had a bit of a reprieve in the last 9 months. That's always going to be a weakness, but we can be prepared for that. Childcare supply and cost is definitely a weakness. We just don't have enough childcare slots in Orange County. And that comes at a huge cost, both to individual households, communities, and then also employers. You'll see later on, we see that as an opportunity. As you pointed out, Catherine, there are some environmental and sustainability challenges. They're real in Orange County. The coastal erosion, flood risks, etc. The rail line going through San Clemente, obviously having huge issues there. So it is a real issue for Orange County. As I said, we looked quite a bit at the impact of AI and automation. That is going to be, I guess it is both an opportunity, but that's also an issue we need to really keep an eye on. One of the things, the last 2 bullet points on this is we have had uneven outcomes. There are disparities, and that's why the focus of SURF is on disinvested communities and how we can lift them up or raise them up. And especially when you look at climate and environmental impacts, those are not all evenly distributed. Things like air pollution, extreme heat events, access to recreation, etc. Those for sure are not evenly distributed throughout the county. Those cause real public health impacts, and there are other factors that cause that, but you can see in the public health data that disinvested communities suffer a lot more public health negative outcomes than other parts of the county. Even though we have good broadband, the digital divide is certainly an issue. And I think COVID uncovered how important that is for things like education, searching for jobs, things like that, just staying informed. So digital divide is definitely a weakness. And then one of the HRTC members added, actually HRTC members added both of these, potential infrastructure issues as the state emphasizes electric vehicles, that how is the grid really prepared to handle that increase in load? So those are definitely things to keep an eye on. So maybe I'll stop at weaknesses very briefly, and then we can get to opportunities and threats. Anything on weaknesses? If not, we can just go to the, maybe the best thing is for me to just conclude, and then we can have a chat at the end. So opportunity core to SURF is to elevate disinvested communities. And that's what SURF is really all about. Everything is pointing towards that. although there's a lot of good efforts on innovation and entrepreneurship, I think we can always do more in that area because it pays such huge benefits. And Orange County is a place that innovation and entrepreneurship should thrive and is thriving, but it can always be increased, and especially innovation and entrepreneurship in disinvested communities. So we do have changing demographics. We are a very diverse county ethnically. One of the biggest things that's a result of that declining population is that we are getting rapidly older as a county. And when turns out that most of the people who move out are moving out between 25 and 44 years old. And losing those people loses our workforce of the future. It loses the children that they would have here. So we do have a declining K through 12 enrollment as well. And it just is not a healthy dynamic for the county. You want to be growing in terms of those age groups. And the other part is, before maybe they would move to like Riverside or San Bernardino County to get access cheaper housing options. Increasingly, most of those people are moving out of state. So that's definitely an opportunity to turn that tide. We already talked a little bit. We have a lot of great industry clusters. We need to do a better job of supporting them. I know Octane has done great work in that area, but we need a broad countywide effort. Career technical education, areas like construction and manufacturing are providing really good paying jobs, and it's a real opportunity, especially in disinvested communities, to be educated and trained for those job opportunities. Orange County has done a pretty good job on recovering from economic shocks, but we have to continue to build that, and especially build that in light of those environmental and sustainability issues that we talked about. And then I think that building this inclusive economic development strategy, which is what SURF is, really, it's all about educating our workforce of the future, and then creating the good paying jobs for them to access. Education is undergoing disruption, just like a lot of sectors. So we need to make sure we're nimble in terms of education. SURF is this opportunity to develop the regional competitiveness strategy. And then I do want to say how important manufacturing is, that as the US reindustrializes and onshores manufacturing, Orange County still has 155,000 manufacturing jobs, and we should play in that space quite well, I think. I think last slide on opportunities is to really look at career pathways and skills-based learning. We have another one of these in a couple of days with the education community. OC Pathways is doing a fantastic job of this, but it needs to be more broad. Addressing that, the childcare weakness would pay tremendous economic benefits for Orange County. And then we need to realize that we have world-class employers. They drive a lot of the economic development that's going on in Orange County, and we need to make sure that we hold on to those. So very quickly on threats, so we have a little bit of time to talk. As I said, declining population is not a good sign. That's almost 50,000 residents over the last few years. Affordability and high cost of living, I talked about that. That's causing some of the increase in poverty rates and homelessness. And then we need to make sure that while we want to be as environmentally friendly as possible, that we are competitive with other states. We do have some disturbing mental health trends that we need to take into account in the plan and strategies. Our AI expert, Dr. Neil Sahota, said our workforce training is lagging a little bit in terms of incorporating AI as something to make sure that it's top of mind. We'll probably always have water supply uncertainty and droughts, but that is definitely a threat. We talked about the climate and sustainability challenges and coastal erosion. Talked also about the increasing older population. And I think this is the last one. AI's impact, and you'll see how much we think AI has to be taken into account in the plan. Shifting trends with commercial real estate post-COVID have been really interesting. And then once again, planning for those natural disasters that we know are going to occur is something we always need to keep in mind. So with that, would love feedback and comments. Thank you to those who already have provided it. And if you, we can always take it by email and that too, but please would love some feedback on this.
Dr. Walrod, I don't want to monopolize here, but just a quick question, because you mentioned AI training in the workforce. So AI is evolving.
Yeah.
And we're not exactly sure what it is even going to look like. So in what context are you referring to AI in, in training of, employees or in the workforce? What does that mean?
Yeah. It is a moving target, and like with all new technology innovation, yeah, we're probably in early days, and we can't maybe even envision what it's going to look like in 5 years. But I think what Neil was really referring to is, I think a lot of people, the initial reaction is that we're just going to have all these jobs eliminated. Right. And you have to look at jobs that might not be eliminated. I think what we're starting to understand is we're not going to lose whole categories of jobs, but AI technology is going to allow people to do their work better. Mm-hmm. And so the training has to be, take a particular technology, whether it's robotics or whether it's ChatGPT. How can the human worker work with that technology to do their job better, faster, etc.? So part of it is understanding what that technology is and what its ramifications are. But another part is trying to be a little bit, have a little bit of forethought about, if I'm in a healthcare setting, this is the way that AI might change the way we diagnose something. So I think it's that kind of way of thinking. It is a very new way of thinking. So I think that's, and it does get back to what we know has been important in education always, like critical thinking skills, interpersonal relationships. But I think it's looking at AI through that lens. What are the critical thinking skills we need to develop in order to prepare our students for that new world, which is coming really fast.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a great question, Catherine.
Mm-hmm. Wallace, a couple of things to tag on to that.
Yeah.
See, I agree with what Catherine is suggesting, because far be it from me to second guess Neil, because he's amazing. Yeah. But I think it's not either or. Mm-hmm. AI is ubiquitous throughout Orange County. It's already solidly integrated into a great many, of the early stage companies and the established companies already. And so I think maybe we don't completely understand it yet, but mm-hmm. it's there and it's evolving and emerging really fast. But maybe it should be an opportunity that we leverage the strength of the emerging combination of education, private sector, AI ecosystem that's clearly here, and also put it under, the fact that we're lagging though. In other words, they're not keeping up. So that might be one way to approach it.
I think it was also to just put it top of mind. And I do think that if we developed an economic development strategy without thinking AI is like one of these big 2 or 3 things that you just have to really build the framework around that, knowing that that's going to occur. And we know it's going to change. It is a lot like kind of the .com, the run up there, and it's just this new technology that's radically transforming, how .coms transform retail. I mean, that's a good example of,
Yeah.
we just need to constantly think.
The other
And
thing is,
right, we're on the very front end of
Yeah.
this.
yeah, we really are. And I just think maybe we just don't understand how, again, how ubiquitous it is and how already well integrated it is. But, and then the other thing is on the career technical education, unless someone, maybe I just have a rose-colored glasses about the CTE, but boy, I think they're, maybe just put a qualifying word in front of it about, continue to leverage, because I think our CTE systemically is really good throughout Orange County already. And that if it's
Absolutely.
not a strength, then it just should be a higher qualified
Yeah,
opportunity.
good point. I think we need to probably market those programs more.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
good point.
amazing how, like, it's just use construction as an industry, talking to Ernesto Medrano, who's very involved
Yeah.
in the SURF process. The amount of good paying jobs that are out there that within, 3 to 5 years, going through the apprenticeship programs you can access is truly eye-opening.
And same thing with IVC and the distinctive pathways that they've created. And then the last thing real quick is under the reindustrialization strategy, the additive manufacturing.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah, is another one that's just really blossoming here. And I'm over and out.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it always. Well, I see we're at a little bit past 3. I think I should turn it probably back over to Jesse.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Rod. Thanks, everyone.
Or Ish, maybe, I don't know, maybe I was.
Sorry, yeah. We'll adjourn, but thank you so much for joining. Again, the draft is in the invite. I dropped it in the chat here. Feel free to review. I know it can be a lot, and then obviously provide comments in an email. I left that as well, and I think all of you on this have my email. So please again, send us further comments as we incorporate that into the final plan. We want it to be inclusive, since so much of economic development is driven by these stakeholders in this room. But thank you so much, and have a good rest of your Monday. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.